Fire away. What do you got?
I'd like to talk about feedback. One of the things I mentioned to you is how sometimes I see some confusion in certain aspects of education and educational theory. And that's because this isn't the only thing I teach. I am actively involved in teaching two what most people would consider to be completely separate subjects. So, of course, they are not completely separate. But what it means is that I have mentors for each of those subjects, and I have good mentors, but they don't always agree. And so that's how I know that in the overall field of education there is not 100% agreement on certain topics, because I can see it for myself, personally experience that there are different ways of addressing things. So one of the things that I see some confusion about is the concept of feedback. So I'd like to get your take on feedback, and what kinds of feedback are there? Why do you give feedback? How do you give feedback? When do you give feedback? Why is it important? And just some clarification on the different kinds of feedback and the different roles of feedback.
Feedback. Okay. I would say that feedback is communication that provides a student with information that enables the student to improve their performance. That's what I think feedback is. There are a lot of ways to do that. It can be verbal. It can be nonverbal. The important part is the communication part. My master's is in communication, by the way. Do you know that? The definition of communication is when everything goes to hell, communication is the thing that you screwed up.
Well, that's the truth.
You know, remember that you're sending a message here. Communication is a message, and there's the sender and there's the receiver. The sender encodes the message, transmits it to the receiver, who decodes the message and for the meaning. Right? It's like kind of a mechanistic kind of model, but you get the idea. So the first most important thing is that the thing that you are, the meaning of the communication that you think it has as the sender, should be the same as the meaning that the receiver thinks it has when they receive it. If those two are the same, that's good communication. If those two are different, that's bad communication. Bad communication, that's it. So it's very particular to the individual, you know, and this is why, more than anything else, what you have to understand is every individual student and every individual teacher is unique. You know, they're a unique person, right? And so, even though they're unique, there are going to be some similarities. But no matter how similar they are, there's still going to be some differences. All right, so you got to wrap your mind around that we're not going to cookie cutter people out at all. That's nonsense. So, to communicate with you effectively, I have to know what kind of communication works for you. I think Malcolm said if somebody asks you a question in Chinese, you don't answer them in English, right? So I have to speak the language that you best understand if my purpose is to communicate with you. And when I'm teaching you, you're teaching me. You're teaching me how to teach you as we go along. Because I'll do X, and if X seems to be effective in producing the desired result, that is to say improves your performance, then that was good communication. And if it doesn't improve your performance, that wasn't so hot. So as we go along, it's not just me giving you feedback. It's that your change of behavior or not change of behavior as your performance gives me feedback on how I'm giving feedback. right? So it's not like this one-way street where, you know, I'm Mr. Know-It-All and you're the peasant and you just, you know, I'm going to feed back to you because I know all the ultimate answers and you're groveling at my feet for knowledge and all that shit. Although some people apparently think that's their role. So it's an individual thing, you know, and who's giving the communication is also important. Yeah, I've played a lot of gigs, you know. I've played a lot of gigs in dingy bars. And, you know, I've had a sloppy drunk or two, you know, waddle up to the bandstand and say, "Oh, you're a great kid, you're having on the radio." You know, I say, "Yeah, thanks, man." So that communication and feedback has X value. Now, it came to pass that with this gig I was playing, a guy came in who was playing in a band that I knew of, and really dug his trumpet player. And they had a Dixieland band. And he was a good player. And I loved their band. After my gig, if there was still time, I'll go and catch their last set all the time. And one day he came into a gig I was playing, and when he left, he said, "Hey, nice set." That's all he said. But that, "Hey, nice set," from a really good musician means a whole lot more than, "Oh, you're fucking great, kid," from some jerk that doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, right? So who gives the communication is really important. And how they give it is really important. And it's, you know, sometimes, you know, if you're with someone who doesn't give compliments easily, then any little compliment from them means a lot. And if you're working with someone who's effusive with praise all the fucking time, if you get, you know, a medal just for showing up, you know, praise like any other commodity, if there's too much of it around, it's pretty cheap. So that's an important thing. I've learned this from my horse, incidentally, who taught me how to communicate with him by ignoring me when I didn't do the right thing. You know, and it was here's a kind of a funny story. Talk about communication. This is a communication by my horse to me. Because this was at the point when I was so green, you know, I could identify the front end of a horse about 85% of the time. I was so green, right? And at this particular time, I was trying to do dressage with this pony. And so I had a tack up ritual. I did everything in the same order. You know, saddle and bridle, put my helmet on, blah, 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 right? And it was the same every time. And so there was a point where I put on his bridle, put on the saddle, snugged up the girth, and my next move was to turn and pick up my helmet. And his horse had picked up my helmet by the brim and was offering it to me. And I thought this was fucking spectacular. And what I didn't realize was that horses are a lot smarter than people are. You see, I thought I was the superior species here, you know? I have fucking news for you, pal. It's the horse. You know, the people get the credit for races and equine events and all this other thing, roping or whatever the hell they're doing. Who gets the trophy? Who gets the money? The people, right? You know who actually does the fucking work, right? It's the horse. You can put a nebbish on a good cutting horse, and as long as the dumb bastard stays in the saddle, the horse will do the cutting. You know? Anyway, there was a point there someplace about feedback. Oh yeah, so he gave me feedback. He was saying, I know this better than you do, pal. I know your patterns, and you have no idea what mine are. I can communicate with you a whole lot better than you're communicating with me. There's a rude awakening. So I was fortunate because I was never steeped in all that conventional horsemanship stuff anyway. I almost said horseman shit, but come to think of it, I will call it that. It is horseman shit. Conventional, traditional horseman shit. Because it doesn't take into account the horse at all. It's all about the human being and what they want. The horse is just a furry motorcycle. Yeah, fuck that. I'm sorry, what was the question?
I want to go back to something that you said because it reminded me of something. You're talking about you're playing these gigs and you have this drunk come up and they're like, "Yeah, that was great." Yeah. I got to hear a lot of live music, and I know that if you go up to the band afterwards and you say that was great, it doesn't really have a lot of meaning because that's the thing that the people who don't know anything say.
Yeah, it's like thank you for your service.
It's nice. It's still better to say thank you and that was great than to just blow them off. But what I found is what works a lot better is to go up and say, hey, I really dug that new tune that you played today. So then I'm like, oh, you noticed it was new. You're paying attention. Or I'll say, the song you played, I really like the way you played it today. That was just what I needed to hear. I'm in. So I try to communicate to them something that indicates to them that I'm actually paying attention to what they're playing.
Yeah.
That I am.
Well, see, here's where language becomes an in-group, out-group identifier, right? Because, and this is particular to my circumstances and all that stuff. But where I played and grew up and like that. If some guy, no, that was unkind. If some guy comes up and says, "Well, that was mighty fine music," so that's one thing, and he might be sincere, and for all I know, the cat's a PhD in musicology, right? But if he says, "Boy, that was mighty fine music," or if some other guy comes up and says, "Hey, I dug it," see, the guy who says "I dug it," he's using the same terminology. In other words, by the way he says it and what he says, he's telling me that, he's one of those people who understands what we're doing. He understands this genre. He listens to he knows how to listen. He knows what to listen for. He knows what the fuck we're about and what we're doing. And he dug it. See, those particular words would have been more meaningful for me at that time than someone who came up and said, "Well, that was some really fine music," because that sounds like he's introducing the Lawrence Welk band to me, and now some really fine music by some really fine musicians,
I think that's part of it. I think the language choice is part, but I think what really makes a difference also is the specificity of giving specific feedback rather than generalized feedback.
Yeah. The more
and that's something I learned from you.
Specific is important because, if I just tell you, practice harder. Practice what? What do I do? What where do I put my fingers? What are you getting at? But if I say, practice supinating your hand and keeping your thumb at 1:30 by the clock. Okay, that's a very specific detail that you can go, okay, that's where my hand belongs, So it has to be specific, otherwise you're just a politician, mumbling platitudes about virtue and hard work and shit like that. Give me some specifics, man.
Yeah, I think a lot of people fall into I want to give some positive feedback. That was great. Yeah, well...
Yeah.
What was great?
What was great? I don't know, all of it was great. The whole thing was great.
Why was it great? This
is a conversation you don't want to have with your lover, right? How was that for you? Oh, that was good. Well, what was good about it? So, it was good. It was good. Oh, shit. Sorry, where were we going with that?
Just talking about different kinds of feedback. When do you give feedback?
Okay, the when is a good thing. Because there are two kinds of feedback. There's feedback in the moment, and then that's, and then there's feedback that's reflective. The most important feedback is feedback in the moment. While you're connected to it, because that tends to have an emotional connection. if you're doing an action and you're screwing it up, and my feedback is that I pop you on the head, right? Not that has ever,
yes, not that that's ever happened.
right? That gets a huge whoa. That brings you right into the moment, right into that moment when you're fucking up. All right, you're right. So this is the thing I want to draw your attention to right here, right now. This is what I don't want you to do. Boom, right? Right. So this is what I learned from my horse. If you're going to give feedback, if you want your pony to turn left and he doesn't do it, you can't wait till you get back to the barn and have a discussion and say, that I really wish you would have turned left then. Because the horse is too smart for that shit. He's moved on. Horses live in the present moment, man. Fuck you. Boom, we're gone. And they don't like to run around in fucking circles anyway. So they're only doing it as an act of grace because they feel sorry for human beings. That's a whole other story about why the creator put horses here. But anyway, that's the point is that the best feedback is immediate, right? Which means a lot of times it's not going to be verbal feedback because verbal is too slow. You got to think about it. You got to formulate words. You got to spew it out. It takes too much time. But if as you're starting to do something, at the moment you screw up, boom, you get physical feedback. That's immediate.
I really, I think that's what teaching the sword really depends on. And this is a discussion I've had with people, why you can't learn this from a book. Because the book can't give you feedback.
Right.
And when you're trying to perfect a skill, you need that immediate feedback.
You need immediate feedback.
And it's not even feedback that you can provide for yourself immediately enough. And
no, you can't.
That's the role of the teacher.
Of the feedback device, whatever it happens to be.
Is to give you that immediate feedback.
Yeah.
To change that behavior in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think there's enough understanding of how critical that is.
Yeah, absolutely. This is why everybody should do boxing too.
Yeah, that's immediate feedback.
Yeah, that's immediate feedback.
Okay, that was wrong.
I learned how to slip a left hook in a day. Because when you don't do it right, you get what's called immediate feedback. Boom. And it's unmistakable and it's unforgettable. Got tired of that really fast. So yeah. So, when you're teaching someone, when they make a mistake, you hit them with a left hook. No, just kidding.
Maybe.
Maybe some people, yeah. So it would be fun with some people. But I don't teach those people, so.
So any other thoughts on feedback and anything about how
you want to be clear, concise, specific, and immediate.
And honest.
And honest. Oh yeah, well, I see that goes without saying for me, but I guess I should say it. Yeah, feedback is not bullshit. Don't try to build somebody up by making them feel better with positive feedback that they didn't earn, because they fucking know it. If your performance was shitty, you know that. And when somebody tries to shine you on about it, you say you just lost your credibility as a teacher. And what's teaching based on? When we talk about this, trust. If I lose your trust, I can't teach you shit now. Right? So the best way to lose trust, lie to somebody and get caught. And you will get caught. So if it was good, specify how it was good, and if it sucked, specify how it would suck and how we plan to make it better. There are things that you can. But here's another thing about feedback. With horses, we call it rewarding the try. In other words, you don't have to do something absolutely fucking perfectly for it to be good. So when I'm working with you, I'm looking for the least increment, the smallest possible element that tells me you're working on it, you're improving, because it may not be good, but it may be better than what came before. So I can be honest. I say, okay, that was better, and I'm not bullshitting you. This was better. It wasn't right. It wasn't good. It wasn't excellent yet, but better has got to come before good and excellent. You don't hop from 0 to excellent. I'm sorry, not here on earth. All right? So as long as it's getting better, the Japanese have a really good word for that. I forget what it is. It means continuous progressive improvement by tiny, tiny increments. Oh man, that's the scene. It really is. The tiniest increments, Yeah. But I learned a lot of shit from horses. And that was one of the things. Reward the try. Just a little tiny bit more, you can't imagine the small increments that we do sometimes. And to gradually get, after a period of time, some spectacular performance, And it's not like you're teaching the horse how to horse. The horse already knows how to horse. You're trying to find how to communicate what you want the horse to do at the moment to the horse. Right? So the onus is on you, man. You're not teaching the horse shit, except you're trying to get him to do what he can already do when you want him to do it. That's a whole different thing. Anyway, that was the point there somewhere. Anyone know what it was?